What's up, it's Wills, and we're back with more GX470 mods. Today we're going to be installing upper and lower control arms. For the uppers, I went with JBA Upper control arms with the heavy duty high caster option for my build. These arms fit the GX470, 460, 4Runners, FJ Cruisers, and Tacomas. These arms move the upper ball joint position back from stock, which gives the alignment techs the ability to move the lower ball joint more forward to achieve more caster. These arms should give about 3 to 4.5 degrees of positive caster adjustment. This is a worthwhile mod since lifting independent front suspension on a Toyota truck reduces the amount of positive caster you can achieve with just stock arms. In my case, the lack of caster range is causing me to rub my body mounts. The arms also come with ball joints that have more range of movement, which enables the suspension to have more droop and thus more traction off-road. The ball joints are also easily replaceable if they go bad, which makes repair super simple. The arms come with poly bushings that are specially designed with channels that help to distribute the grease evenly. Lastly, they come with grease ports for easy maintenance of the bushings and the ball joints. For the lower arms, I went with Superpro double offset lower control arms. These arms allow for more caster and camber adjustment. The way these arms achieve this is that the rear bushings are offset away from the frame and they push the ball joint pivot point forward. The front bushings are offset towards the frame, which pulls the ball joint pivot point forward. You can see from my crude measurements that the ball joint does indeed move forward. So combined with the uppers, we should have a huge range of adjustability to get the alignment just right. But the ball joints are replaceable, which is nice. Unfortunately though, these do not come with grease ports to maintain the poly bushings and the ball joints with fresh grease. Alright, so let's go out to the car and get the old parts off. Alright, first up we're going to go ahead and get the front end lifted up. Start by chalking the rear wheels and get the handbrake pulled up and engaged. While it's still on the ground, go ahead and break loose the lug nuts. And then we're going to be jacking up the front end from the middle of the front cross member. Once it's jacked up high enough, go ahead and lower it onto a pair of jack stands. Or once the wheels are off, go ahead and place them under the truck for a little bit extra safety. Starting with the upper control arms, as they tend to be pretty easy to get off. We'll start by taking off this bracket that holds on the ABS sensor in place. Next, we gotta get off the upper control arm bolt, but to do that, we gotta move this brake line to the side. There's a bolt holding on the bracket, and once that's off, we can go ahead and move the brake line off to the side. This will give us the room we need to get a socket and extension onto the nut. Do be careful when loosening this bolt, as it is very close to the brake line and a slip could cause damage to the line. Then we'll go ahead and get off the sway bar end links from the spindle upright. And now we can work on getting the upper ball joint off by removing the cotter pin and then loosening the ball joint castle nut. Put a jack under the lower control arm for support. Begin to free the ball joint from the spindle by hammering it on the side of the spindle. But it just wasn't budging, so I went ahead and went to the local parts store and rented a ball joint separator tool. We're going to go ahead and take the top part of this tool and hammer it between the ball joint and the spindle. Then we can go ahead and get on the other half onto the castle nut. This is important so that the ball joint separates in a controlled manner instead of just flying off. Once the ball joint and spindle are separated, I use some ratchet straps to hold the spindle in position that doesn't stress the brake lines. Lastly, we need to get off the upper control arm long bolt. But as you can see, it's hitting this body seam, so I grabbed some pliers and I bent it out a little bit for clearance. I was also hitting this wiring harness, so I popped this clip out that was holding it onto the body. There was also this 10mm bolt under the battery tray that was holding the harness in place. And on the driver's side, it was also hitting the battery tray, so we had to disconnect the battery to be able to get the long bolt out on the driver's side. And after all that, we were finally able to get the bolt and the upper control arm off. For the passenger side, there wasn't anything preventing the bolt from completely sliding out. Alright, and let's get the new arms set for install. We'll begin by getting some of this bushing lube applied to the inner sleeves of the bushing. So this kit comes with 2 sets of washers. The thicker washers will be on the outside of the bushings, and the inner washers will be on the inside of the bushings. So here's how it'll go. It'll go thick, thin, thin, thick for the washer orientation. The fitment is quite tight, so I pressed the inner sleeves out a bit more to give me a little bit more clearance when installing the washers. So installing these by yourself could be a bit tricky, as you have to hold the long bolt and the washers in place while trying to get the bolt to slot into the frame. Now comes the tricky part, which is getting on the second slim washer. There's very little space to fit the washer, so what I did was pull down the arm at an angle, which gave me just enough space to wedge it in on top. I then slowly hammered the washer into position and used the screwdriver to get the arms lined up with the bolt until it finally went all the way through. I got the other big washer in and I snugged up the nut. And here's another angle from the passenger side of getting that inner washer in. Also for the passenger side, take note that the bolt is very difficult to access. No way to really get your hands in there, and the bolt gets hung up on the power steering line. So what I did was I used the long breaker bar to tap the bolt through the arm. Now we can get the ball joint installed onto the spindle. To tighten the ball joint, we'll need a 22mm wrench to tighten the bolt and a smaller 3/8 wrench to hold the ball joint from spinning. Once it's snugged up, go ahead and torque it down to 60 foot-pounds. We'll also torque the upper long bolt to 85 foot-pounds. JBA also instructs us to check that the ball joint bolts that are holding them onto the control arm are torqued to 13 foot-pounds. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the ABS sensor bracket and the brake lamp bracket as well. Lastly, we'll finish up the upper control arms by greasing the bushings. I got my grease gun and I pumped the bushings until grease came out the sides of the washers. Then I gave about 10 to 15 pumps into the ball joints. Alright, so let's move on to the lower control arms. First, we're going to break loose this strut bolt, but we're going to leave it there for now. Then break loose the 2 bolts on the outside of the knuckle. We're also going to leave those there until we take off the lower ball joint. So first we got to get this cotter pin off, which was being a real pain. So what made it quicker for me is to use a punch as a wedge to get it out. Then we can go ahead and get off the ball joint bolt and the 2 knuckle bolts. And now for the dreaded cam bolts. There have been reported cases of cam bolt sleeves rusting to the bushing sleeves and people needing to cut them out with a Sawzall. My truck is pretty rust free, so I'm hoping I won't have any issues. And for the reveal, they're clean. Not a single speck of rust on the cam bolts or the sleeves. Came out like butter. For the rear cam bolts, there isn't a sleeve, so Typically, these have less issues, but once again for me, they're pretty clean and rust-free. Perks of buying a car in California. Then we can just pop off the shock bolts using a punch. The lower arms are free. Lastly, we got to separate this ball joint and this knuckle. I tried hammering it, but ended up just using the ball joint separator that we used for the upper ball joint. And then I went ahead and cleaned up the knuckle a bit. So for the cam bolts, I decided to reuse the factory Toyota hardware instead of the bolts that came with the Superpro kit. The hardware in the kit looks pretty low quality, so I'm sticking with these factory bolts. To get them prepped, we're going to give them some protection by applying anti-seize to the bolts and the sleeves to protect them against corrosion. Then we'll go ahead and get them onto the frame. Poly bushings are a bit tight, so using a mallet helps to get them into position. Then we'll get the sleeves and the alignment bolts in and snug them up. I had to use a wrench for the rear since my skid plates are blocking access from using a ratchet. Then I got the knuckle onto the lower ball joint and snugged it up too. Next was probably the hardest part of the lower arm install. It was super difficult to get the knuckle to line up, and I even thought the threads might be stripped. After confirming that the threads are good, I proceeded to fiddle with it until I finally got one bolt in. Once one was in, I was able to get the second one in. Then we used a jack to raise up the lower arms so we can install the lower shock bolts. Now I can go ahead and set an approximate alignment. I set the camber to about halfway in the range, and I set the caster to max positive. I set the caster to max positive because previously I was rubbing my body mount, so hopefully this extra caster helps me to clear. I went ahead and torqued the lower ball joint, castle nut. I used the jack to put some load on the arm while setting the torque. Once it was torqued, we put in the new cotter pin and bent it so it's securely in place. Before we get the wheels back on, we'll go ahead and clean off the rotors since I touched them a few times during the install. Then we'll go ahead and get their wheels back on, and the new upper arms give a little bit more droop than the stock arms, so I had to lift it quite a bit more than previously. Now we can go ahead and torque the wheels to spec in the star pattern. And now that the truck is on the ground, we can go ahead and torque the two knuckle bolts. The cam bolts can also be torqued as well. I had to turn the wheel, get enough access to turn my torque wrench. And for the rears, I couldn't get a torque wrench in there, so I just had to get as tight as I could by hand using wrenches. Lastly, we took the lower shock bolt to spec. Now that the arms are installed, we went ahead and went over to our local alignment shop and got the truck aligned. So here are my alignment results. I wanted to ask for as much positive caster as I could, so I could have as much clearance around the body mount as possible since I was rubbing before. And as you can see now, we've got lots of clearance around the body mount and no more rubbing. For camber and tow, the shop set it to very neutral for even tire wear. After driving the truck around, it honestly feels brand new. It drives very straight and the steering feels very tight and precise now. With the refreshed suspension, I hope to give this GX many more years of reliable adventuring. And that's all for this install. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, go ahead and give this video a like. And if you want to keep following the build, subscribe. Alright, see you in the next one. Peace.